You're listening to the Pole Position Podcast from Let's Talk Sport.
Lights out, away we go!
Reliability issues haunts Vettel's championship chances.
Box, Sebastian, box. We retire the car, I'm afraid.
And Lewis Hamilton gets one hand on the World Championship trophy after winning his 61st F1 race in Japan.
Get in there, Lewis boy. Beautiful work, lovely managed race. That's a fantastic result.
Stay tuned for the review of the Japanese Grand Prix with myself, Jamie Davies, Dan Middleton and Harry Wright. So it is Jack Price's birthday. Yes, it's his birthday. Let's sing along, shall we? Hang on, stop the music. He's not here. He has somehow pulled out, and we all saved up for many months. We got him a round the world Formula One ticket for him to go to every race next season, but I've put it in the bin. It's too late, Jack. You've missed out on a very special present from the Pole Position Podcast. We're only kidding, of course. Enjoy your birthday, Jack. Harry Wright to Dan Middleton are alongside me. So, wow, the Japanese Grand Prix, it always never fails to impress, as it, of course, yet again has probably decided the title, no thanks to Ferrari's reliability, because Hamilton won the Japanese Grand Prix. He is now 59 points ahead with 100 remaining with just 4 races to go. And if Hamilton wins the next Grand Prix, which is the US version, it'll be, and Vettel finishes lower than 5th, then he will be a world champion for a 4th time. Incredible. We went on Twitter and we asked you, fans out there, who will win the Japanese Grand Prix with our poll. 54% said Hamilton, so most of them were right. 31% said Vettel, that was me as well. 15% said Ricciardo. So obviously a lot of them getting it right, but oh well, it's not been a good day for Vettel. But let's hear a very happy Lewis Hamilton after the race.
Oh, geez, I'm telling you, it was, for the first part of the race, it was the first half of the race very, very well under control, and the second half was a lot harder. The tyres, balance of the car, traffic that we were getting a lot of the time, and and with the VSC, which I did a great job under, then couldn't start, the front tyres weren't working, so I had massive understeer. All of a sudden he was on me. I mean, geez, he looked so big in my mirrors, but really grateful the car stuck together and didn't make any mistakes, so I'm really really proud of that. I wouldn't say that I have one hand on it, no. I think there's still 100 points available, so still going to keep the pedal to the metal. And of course he's been very unfortunate through no fault of his own, and these things, it's such a reliability thing. These engines are so complex, but all I can really say is that my guys just do such a phenomenal job. They're just so meticulous and just faultless with their procedures and processes that they go back at the factory. So a big thank you to everyone back at the factory, who both Brixworth and Brackley do an amazing job, and hope I'm making them proud.
So Harry, it looks like Vettel has missed out on another world championship. He still just can't seem to do it apart from Red Bull. But at the end of the day, it wasn't really his fault. Ferrari, yet again, it seemed as though they swapped cars for this weekend, in which Vettel had Raikkonen's car from last weekend and had the reliability problems.
Yeah, it's very disappointing, really, because it's all really gone wrong for Ferrari in the last couple of races. It looked like Vettel might actually be able to win the title, beat Hamilton and sort of end Mercedes' dominance, and then the last 3 races, he's either crashed out or his engine's blown up. And it's really just, I think it's taken away from what should have been a very good title battle.
Absolutely, Harry. Dan, of course, I was just going to mention that to you, a world championship that we always hope goes to the very final race. And for us fans, that's why I voted for Vettel to win today, just because he would have been a few points closer to Hamilton.
Yeah, of course. I think everybody would have loved it to go down to the wire, wouldn't they? The last race, it all hinges on that last race. That would have been the best moment. But at the end of the day, in my personal opinion, it's game over now. Of course, Lewis Hamilton goes, there's still 100 points to play for, it's not over yet. And as a professional, you've got to be like that. I know you've got to play for the media, play for the cameras. We know, but he knows deep down that he's going to win that championship now. And give him credit today. He drove very well, and had a lot of pressure from Verstappen and Ricciardo. So a good performance really from Hamilton, and you could see at the end him sort of bowing down, tapping his car, really emotional. He was really emotional, and it was good to see actually.
Well, of course, let's not forget as well, Sir Mo Farah was a guest for the Mercedes team today in Japan, and maybe Sir Mo Farah just touched his shoulder and gave him that racing mentality, even though Hamilton doesn't need it. But it was great to see Mo Farah, I must admit. When the cars were going out for the formation lap, Mo Farah was there watching with his sunglasses, wearing a Hamilton cap, and literally smiled like a 10-year-old kid going to their first F1 race. He loved it. He's a great man, Mo Farah. But anyway, let's hear the moment. Oh, go on, Dan.
Jamie.
What's that?
We loved the Mobot celebration from Hamilton at the end on the podium.
I didn't, because he should have done an L, How do you do an L on your head? But he's not Mo Farah, Only Mo should be able to do that. Usain Bolt with the, whatever you call that. I have no idea, but I love it. Anyway, let's hear what Sebastian Vettel had to say after the race.
Well, it's normally you're critical, especially if things go wrong. So it's part of our job, but I think I need to protect them. We've done an incredible job so far. Obviously, pitted the last two races with the reliability issues, but it's like that sometimes. Of course, it hurts, and we're all disappointed. But now I think the best is to get back, get some rest, and then go flat out for the last 4 races and see what happens. We still have a chance this year. Obviously, it depends what happens today and then the next races. But obviously, it's not as much in our control as we'd like. But overall, I think the team is on a good way. So I think we are improving race by race. I think we got a lot further than people thought. So there's also some positives. But for sure, now you don't look at the positives because it's not the day to look at positives.
Sebastian, would you say that you lost the title today, or
I don't know. I think you calculate or you count the points at the end of the year and see how many you have. Then you look back, but for sure, not finishing the race doesn't help.
Just to talk about next season, I know we're probably going too far ahead already, Harry, but I'm really hoping that if Ferrari continue what they did at least in the first part of this season, they could be contenders with Mercedes and hopefully Red Bull as well.
Yeah, but looking at Ferrari's history, in the Red Bull season, so next year will probably be absolutely terrible for Ferrari, and they probably won't achieve anything.
Oh dear. Well, I hope the history might be right for next year. For any Ferrari fans out there, let's hope it gets better. Okay, let's quickly talk about Red Bull, shall we? Because Max Verstappen, on the very last few laps, he was chasing down Hamilton. And then come the last 2 laps, he was getting really close to him. And then all of a sudden, Alonso was nearby. Yes, that slow, awful McLaren Honda. I can't wait to see the back of that car come the end of the year. Hamilton had to go past him. He overlapped the Spaniard. But then obviously the blue flag came out and Alonso didn't get the chance to move out the way for Verstappen. And then Massa came up later on, and it kind of interfered the chances for the Dutchman to try and get his second race win within a week. But it certainly was very interesting to see, Dan, that the Red Bulls are certainly giving it a good go for another race win. But it's a shame what happened between Alonso and Verstappen at the end.
Yeah, but I'm going to ask you the question, Jamie. I'm going to relate it back to you. Do you think if that hadn't have happened and Verstappen had a clear path, do you think he would have overtaken Hamilton? Or was there too little laps left for him to do it? And same goes... Actually, I'll relay that to Harry as well.
That's a good question. I must admit, with the way Verstappen's been driving at the moment, that Japan's one of those, wasn't it? There was quite a good race pace for Mercedes, but for Red Bull, it wasn't that too bad either, especially when Verstappen kept challenging Valtteri Bottas as well. Harry, what did you think?
I was unlucky enough not to see the race because whilst I was up at that time, I was of it, and it's sort of like it's one of those where everyone loves the what ifs of F1. Say, if Alonso hadn't blocked him, Max Verstappen would have won the race. But let's be honest, he probably wouldn't. Hamilton would have defended against him, and it's not going to be a sort of Kimi Raikkonen, 2005 situation where he overtakes him on the last corner or the last lap. I just don't. I could see him, even if he was gaining on him, he probably wouldn't have been able to get past him, I don't think.
As well, Harry, with the Red Bulls as well, they're looking. I'm liking the partnership of Daniel Ricciardo and Verstappen as well. They both got a podium today. Ricciardo, I think that was his 8th podium of the season, which is really good for Red Bull, for a team that's trying to revive themselves to the glory days of 2010 to 2013. But surely for Christian Horner, they're looking at those two drivers thinking, we've got a great team, we've just got to get the right car.
I think they've got one of the most potentially the best team on the grid at the moment, because not only are the two drivers very good, but as of yet I haven't seen any falling out the season after whatever do become title contenders. Maybe the two drivers will fall out, but at the moment they seem to get on really well, and that's quite rare for a top class team. What was that, sorry?
You see the press conference about with Ricciardo and Verstappen? Yeah, they're throwing something at Verstappen.
I must admit, I didn't see that. I did not see that. What happened, Dan? Come on, what happened?
So the top three, of course, Hamilton in the middle, Verstappen to his right, so our left if we're looking at it, and then Ricciardo the other side. They were just about to start the post-race sort of media questions, etc., etc. And Ricciardo threw something at Verstappen. Verstappen laughed it, and then decided to move over slightly behind Hamilton's back and squirt water at him.
Oh,
so it was all sort of lively banter.
He basically got revenge from last weekend because, what was it, Daniel Ricciardo randomly spilt water over Verstappen, and then Verstappen says, it looked like I wet myself, or maybe I did. It's just so
Harry's right though in that sense that they've not had a falling out yet, and they look really close, almost a friendship. So obviously they're going to be race buddies, but they're not going to be friends off the scene.
Do you guys think that friendship could change next year, or in any season, if they were both going for the World Championship like Mercedes did with Rosberg and Hamilton?
Well, I was going to say, look at Rosberg and Hamilton. They, talked about how great mates they were and how they shared a flat in Monaco when they were youth drivers, and all these videos. And the minute 2014 turns up and they're rivals, suddenly they just completely fell out with each other. And I could totally just see that happening between Verstappen and Ricciardo. In fact, I could guarantee it'll happen.
That's natural though, isn't it? That's natural. That's what professional sport's all about, isn't it? They're at the top for a reason. They've got that competitive streak within them. It's how how they release that and how they show that. So that's always going to happen. If obviously they come to fight it out next season for the top two, then that's natural. They're not going to be friends. Let's put it that way.
Okay, let's quickly look at the results of the race then. So Lewis Hamilton getting another win of the season, Max Verstappen second, Ricciardo third, Valtteri Bottas outside the podium again, who did say before the race weekend he's feeling like this is the most uncomfortable time of his F1 career so far, but obviously the guy's feeling competitive. He's up for next year, I'm sure. Kimi Raikkonen, he did well getting fifth at the end. That Ferrari was not doing great at the start of the race. He even went off the track on the first lap, just after the spoon corner. And Raikkonen did really well at the end just to get fifth. Esteban Ocon and Sergio Perez in 6th and 7th. Shall we just quickly hear on the team radio Sergio Perez asking the engineers to take over Ocon?
Right, can I attack Esteban? She's just too slow. No, Checo. No. Hold position. We will have more updates for you in a few laps. Don't get to pick up that pace. He's too slow.
So yes, Perez not delighted with the response from his boss there. Kevin Magnussen and Grosjean getting 8th and 9th for Haas. Great 6 points for Haas F1 there for the Constructors' Championship. And Felipe Massa in 10th with his future. Obviously, half and half in doubt with what's going on between Kubica and Di Resta. Harry, we haven't heard your thoughts yet because Robert Kubica, we said in the preview podcast, on Pole Position podcast, that of course Di Resta and Kubica have been given at least 2 testing days later this month for Williams. Is this still a publicity stunt in the words of Jack Price?
I I feel like I've been very negative on today's podcast, but I want to say yeah. I mean, as much as I'd love to see Kubica come back, everyone would love to see it. I just can't see him being competitive. I mean, look at Michael Schumacher, for example. You know, probably the greatest driver ever in Formula One. When he came back, he wasn't really that good. You know, Robert Kubica was a very good driver, but if and when he comes back, I just can't imagine him being that great. So, but on the other hand, if your alternative is Paul di Resta, you may be tempted to have a punt at Robert Kubica.
I feel like this should be the Paul di Resta haters podcast because none of us like the guy, do we? Well, I mean, that's probably a harsh word, but in terms of the drivers that are on the lineup, you'd prefer to have somebody else than Paul di Resta, but oh dear. Anyway, Fernando Alonso 11th. Let's talk about Jolyon Palmer then. Of course, this is his final potential ever race in Formula One. We found out news just hours before the race that he would be actually not driving for Renault for the rest of the season. So when it comes to the US Grand Prix, Carlos Sainz will actually take the seat off him, while Daniel Kvyat will replace Carlos Sainz at Toro Rosso with Pierre Gasly. Let's hear his thoughts after his potential final ever F1 race.
Feeling all right. Obviously, it's been a bit of a strange weekend, knowing that this was going to be the last one with the team. Been with the team now for 3 years, so yeah, it's a shame not to be going to Austin with them. But it's a strange one because I knew also I was going to have an engine penalty here, and from 18th on the grid, I think finishing 12th is about as good as we could have done. Apart from, if we didn't have the VSC at the end or we had one more lap, then I was 4 seconds a lap quicker than Massa and Wright on his arse at the end. So we maybe could have had a point, but nonetheless, I'm happy to have seen the flag. It's been pretty clear. Carlos is signed for next year, and Cyril made it clear that he wanted to put him in the car this year as well. So I think that after this race, there's a couple of week gap, and it made sense for this time to be the time where we part ways. So it's a shame, like I said, for me to not finish the season, having been with the team for a while, but I respect the decision. And wish the team still the best for the future, Carlos the best, and we'll go our separate ways and I'll work on something else for my future.
So Palmer sounding quite positive in his interview there, but deep down, Harry, in a few days' time, that'll certainly hit him. Do you feel Renault made the right choice to just get on with it? Because we knew he was leaving the team anyway, and they decided to do it a few races earlier than expected.
I mean, Enstone does have a history of these sort of late season driver switches. Obviously 2013 you had Kimi Räikkönen leaving and Heikki Kovalainen coming in, and he was absolutely terrible. And then way back in 2004, I think, if you remember, Jarno Trulli left to join Toyota, and they brought in Jacques Villeneuve, and he was absolutely terrible. So I can only assume that Renault either think third time's a charm, or they just haven't learned their lessons in bringing a driver in the season this late. I mean, it's quite fortunate in that Gasly's not Gasly. Who am I thinking of?
Kvyat?
No. Carlos Sainz. Yeah, bringing him in. It's a good move, I'd say, because he's a proven driver. But I don't like these sort of late season change. I don't see the point. You may as well just wait the season out.
Dan, we said after the race that when we found out about Carlos Sainz retiring on the first lap for Toro Rosso, was that just more like, I'm not driving for you lot anymore, let me just leave you with a goodbye present of a crashed and smashed Toro Rosso?
Well, in the words of Harry Wright, I think Jolyon Palmer's going to be feeling absolutely terrible. I think it's not nice. I think it's harsh. I think if he was going to leave anywhere, I think you might as well give him to the end of the season, because that car's not exactly great, I don't think. I think they should have just let his contract run out, but I think maybe, as Harry said, Carlos Sainz, proven driver, you might be able to get a little bit more out of the car than what Jolyon was, but it's still not really going to affect anything. So I think it's kind of a weird decision this sort of late into a season to change drivers.
Well, I mean, I must admit, Jolyon Palmer will he be missed, Harry?
Probably not really. I mean, he just joins the hordes of F1 drivers that no one really remembers, I guess. I guess he might be known because obviously the father and son connection, but other than that, he's not really made a huge impact on the sport.
Speaking of former F1 drivers, Harry, I must admit it was quite nice to see Takuma Sato on the podium doing the interviews afterwards, and he even had a nice big bling wedding ring in the middle of his finger, and Hamilton asked to wear it himself at one point on the podium. He took the ring off him and he could have run away with it, but I feel like he can afford a new ring with his wages anyway. But it was good to see him on the podium. Anyway, let's go through the rest of the leaderboard then. So Pierre Gasly, the man who took Kvyat's seat, while Kvyat has the chance to get revenge on him to accidentally crash into him in a future race, I'm sure. Stoffel Van Dorn 14th. He didn't get 7th. Van Dorn didn't get 7th. It's incredible. But yet again, he has a McLaren Honda, so that might tell you why. And Pascal Wehrlein came last because the rest of the cars that retired was Lance Stroll. Nico Hulkenberg was pretty funny, to be honest, because DRS was stuck on the back of his car, the flap, and basically he literally got out the car very unhappy. And, you know, when a simple error like that happens, it costs you money and points. Marcus Ericsson went out as well. If you actually watch Ericsson's retirement, it made me laugh because it was, okay, the corners are difficult, but it looked like quite a simple error for the Swedish man. Sebastian Vettel retired as well. Vettel retired, if you didn't know. And Carlos Sainz as well, as mentioning before. Harry Wright, we'll talk about Pascal Wehrlein in a bit because of your predictions from the default setting of the pole position podcast. You must be very upset. We'll get your reflections in just a bit, but as mentioning before, you guys said during our break while we were recording this that you want to talk more about Force India. Harry, I remember when we did a YouTube video on Let's Talk Sport before the season started, yes. and I remember, this is when you're going to get haunted, and I remember finding out from quotes from Force India saying that a top 3 for them in the Constructors' Championship is a aim. And I said to you that's got to be unrealistic. You agreed, and then you said it was going to be a poor season for them, making me want to cry inside because I'm a Perez fan. But how wrong you might be now.
I think, if I remember rightly, I predicted them to be the 3rd worst team on the grid, or something to that effect. It was just at the start of the season when they showed up with this ugly fat grey car, and it just looked absolutely terrible. And then for some reason, I just thought, they finished 4th last season. There's no way they can repeat that. And they just defy belief, Force India. Every season you expect them, like, okay, this is the season where they're going to do badly, you know, and then they just do better. And it happens every single year. They're just getting better and better and better, and it makes no sense to me.
Dan, pink is fast.
Apparently so, yeah, they've had a good weekend, but I think they've had a pretty good season. I think they've been quite consistent, and I think your man Jamie, of course, he's been very good this season. I'm sure the listeners won't need telling who that is. But what I will say is there's a statement here from Force India on Twitter with regards to a security guard that worked for them, who unfortunately passed away whilst on duty at the Grand Prix. So they've just released a statement about 3 hours ago now, just saying about that. So of course we wish their family well at this point, but bar that, a very, very good weekend for Force India, and like Harry said, they seem to just keep getting better and better.
Yes, on behalf of the Pole Position podcast team, that is tragic news to hear about, but his memory will live on. But I must admit, being a security guard for an F1 team must be pretty cool. Seeing all the drivers come in and out, all the engineers going around the world, must be a pretty cool job. But no, very sad news to hear after the Japanese Grand Prix. Anyway, we must move on. Any mentions you guys want to point out before we move over to the predictions?
For me, it's got to be Carlos Sainz on his last drive for Toro Rosso, deliberately deliberately getting out the race. I think was obvious. It was obvious he was going to do that, wasn't he? On his last race, he's got to bow out somewhere.
Makes you think of other drivers that have binned it on their final race. Jenson Button, he had a crash. David Coulthard, he had a good crash on his final race.
I feel like they can't be bothered at the end. They think, look, I've done my bit. It doesn't really matter anymore for me. I'm going to just sit back and watch the race as a fan and go out on the first lap. Fair enough.
I mean, I don't know about you two and the listeners, of course, but it's so frustrating. I mean, I've got the race classification on my screen now, and it's got to be so frustrating seeing the likes of Felipe Massa and Fernando Alonso 10 and 11th respectively. It's seeing the calibre of driver that far down the pecking order. It is frustrating, I think, for a lot of people.
But you could argue those are the drivers of past. When you look at the drivers that finished in the points, you've got Esteban Ocon, Sergio Perez, Kevin Magnussen, all sort of three highly rated drivers. Even Romain Grosjean's not that old, and I know he's been around a few years now, but he's still a relatively young driver. And then you got Verstappen and Ricciardo, and all of these drivers. There's only really sort of Lewis Hamilton and Kimi Raikkonen and Felipe Massa are the old drivers. And in the top 10, all the others, I'd say, are sort of quite young.
Actually, I nearly forgot. I was going to ask for your driver of the day because even though I don't think any of you actually watched the race, I'll just go through the online poll that we put on Twitter. Let's Talk Sport 12. Make sure you follow it. And Max Verstappen got the most with 54%. Lewis Hamilton with 39%. Ricciardo with 4%. I don't really know why I put Raikkonen in this because he actually got 3%, which is probably quite generous despite his first few laps. But Harry, start off with you, your driver of the day.
I actually voted on that poll, and I was one of the people that voted for Verstappen, purely and simply because he wasn't Lewis Hamilton.
Do you know what? I actually agree with everything Harry just said. I voted Verstappen because it wasn't Hamilton. I don't like voting the person that's finished first because although yes they finished first, blah blah blah, I don't like voting for whoever's finishing first. So the next best, Verstappen. But I will give a shout out to Esteban Ocon as well. I think finishing sixth was good for him, and like we've already mentioned, a good weekend for Force India with the 6th and 7th.
Yeah, well, I'll say this now. If Perez was allowed to attack, he would have been 6th. Not being biased at all. I must admit as well, just to let these listeners know, if you can't tell from our accent or our language, we are British people here, and we don't seem to like any British driver in F1 at the moment. So we're a very good.
Because I looked at the button and he's gone. So
yeah,
patriotic.
Since he's gone, it's just not the same, is it? Jensen Bond will be missed. Anyway, let's move over to the Pole Position Podcast Predictions Championship. Now, that's a long one, isn't it? And we're going to keep it that way. And obviously, this is where we assess how us four did, even though Jack's not with us today. So let's go through it, shall we? Dan, let's start off with you. Do you know how well you've done, or...?
Yeah, I know how well I've done, but you can say anyway.
Yep, I will confirm with the listeners that, Dan, you got Bottas for first. I don't know why you went for that. But it is a prediction.
I'll change it up a little bit, that's all.
That would have been interesting. Verstappen second, so that's 8 points. That's 8 points for Dan. After he got 0 last week, so progress there for Mr. Middleton. But he did go with Hamilton third, so that is only 8 points for him. Jack Price, it's got to be because it's his birthday that he's got points on for him, because he's got his first ever points after 3 races.
Boom shakalaka.
Hamilton first, which is 10 points. Ricciardo second. If only he switched it with Vettel, he would have got 6 points. That'd have been level with one of us at least. And that was Vettel he went for third as well. Harry Wright, since he forgot to send me them in time before the preview, he got a default setting of Pascal Wehrlein first, Marcus Ericsson second, and Fernando Alonso third. Harry, what were you thinking?
Well, I'd just like to say, I didn't forget I was doing research. I was waiting for the practice sessions and qualifying to make an educated decision. So I think this is a very unfair and biased ruling against someone who's actually bothered to make a reliable prediction.
Harry, since I'm the nicest guy in the world, I have got your actual predictions here. Bearing in mind you took the advantage of practice and qualifying,
Wait. Harry actually did other predictions. This wasn't spoken about.
He sent me a text on Saturday in the evening, and this is his actual prediction. So we got Hamilton right to win, so that's 10 points. He didn't get Vettel right, but he got Ricciardo right, and that's 6.
Yes.
So that's 16 points. So, Harry, you Nelson PK of Singapore, you get yourself 16 points. So that means if we look at the table, Harry Wright is back on top and, bouncing back, you could say, even though he was top last weekend. If I add the 16 points up, that means he is on 34. But Dan Middleton, who is second now, is 10 behind with 24. I'm on 16 still because I got nothing. Because I got Vettel, Hamilton and Raikkonen. I got them all wrong. And Jack Price is 4th, but that's because there's progress for him. He's got 10 points. He doesn't have 0 anymore.
What I will say, Jamie, is Jack texted me earlier on. Of course, we will wish him happy birthday. He texted me earlier. He just wants to mention how excited he is about getting his first points on the board. So, well done, Jack.
A birthday gift for Jack Price, you could say, from the pole position podcast team. Hey, saves me from spending money. Sorry, that was rude. Anyway, this comes to the end of another pole position podcast. Thank you very much for you listeners at home for listening. There will be, of course, plenty more podcasts to come throughout the season. Coming up, we do actually have an interview with Karen Chandok ahead of the US Grand Prix. So make sure you keep yourself updated on the Let's Talk Sport YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to that. Thank you to Dan Middleton and Harry Wright as always, and hopefully Harry will predict a bit earlier than next time, but I'll let you off this time. But anyway,
I promise I will.
Anyway, make sure you like, share and subscribe to the Let's Talk Sport YouTube channel. So at the end of the day, the title race is well and truly done, as Hamilton just one win away from winning his 4th ever World Championship. It's goodbye.
Box, Sebastian, box. We retire the car, I'm afraid.
My DRS is stuck open, It doesn't close.
Long way around, come on Daniel, you can do it. Brave it out, he wants that. Good boy. Great move.
Felipe Massa's left the door open for Kevin Magnussen.
Good boy.
Extending his scoring streak to 21 races this weekend. He has won in Fuji before. He has won in Suzuka before. He has seen Sebastian Vettel retire from the race. Lewis Hamilton wins the Japanese Grand Prix. It is a 59-point lead at the top of the championship now, with 4 races to go for Hamilton.
Get in there, Lewis boy. Beautiful work, lovely managed race. That's a fantastic result.